Okay, I'm going to take us through the mechanical process of creating a duplication table. This is best used when there is data that is a pick any type of data where people have put a multiple response in, where people can just tick any number of areas where they want to be where they agree with. For instance, the raw data looks like this. How would you like to learn about this this medical product? So how would you like to learn about this medical product? And those are the questions, and it goes fine. Those are the questions, and then here, tick this if you would like to learn about this medical product from a health professional or their staff. Tick this box if you would like to hear from about this medical product through the mail. Tick this if you would like to hear from this medical product through in-store brochures. Okay, social media, newspaper, all of that. Okay, so there we are, and the data looks like this. It's a 1 if they tick the box. It's empty if they didn't tick the box. Turns out we've only got about 30 responses, 38 responses in there, and I've summed them at the bottom. Okay, what we end up getting is something that looks like this: a duplication of mentions table. Okay, so the total count of mentions is 23%. Of the total mentions were around "I'd like to hear from health professionals or their staff." 12% of the total number of mentions was wanting to hear through mail. In-store brochures. Okay, so there's our percentage of the total count. I've copied that across the front, across the top there as well. What is inside the body of this table now is amongst the people who ticked the health professionals or staff, what percentage, for every 100 people who ticked health professionals or staff, how many people also ticked mail, they'd like to hear by mail? How many people, what percentage of people who ticked health professionals or staff also ticked in-store brochures? What percentage also ticked social media? Okay, so what that gives us is we would generally get a fairly consistent, if there's no particular pattern going on, we would get a fairly consistent duplication percentage there. But you can see that the duplication percentage is high for the more popular and tends to go down a little here. So, and what we can do then is we can calculate an average duplication and look at the deviations from there. I have conditionally formatted this to show the highs and the lows, okay? And what we also can expect to see is these numbers as we go across. We can expect to see these numbers going downwards. So what we end up getting is this one is I'm getting a mass media effect. You know, with people who ticked like my fancy editing, because I also so I saw the the mass media effect, and that is sharing. If you ticked a newspaper, yeah, you also ticked really high on other. So those share with each other. That's just a bit of noise mainly, and then we get down here. Television. Great, pretty high sharing on television and radio. Pretty high sharing on magazines and newspaper. So mass media effect. The other interesting one, and that's that little thing I just saw. So that was my fancy editing. That was that little one I just saw, and that was people who ticked these mass media items. Actually, like that line across the top is all really high anyway. But people who ticked media across the mass media across the top are often 100% of the people who ticked mass media said yeah, and of course I'd like to hear from my health professional, and also, you know, pretty high for male as well. Look, that's what a duplication table does. I really wanted to put this together as to how to build a duplication table. So this is really more just a data crunching instruction vid. So let me do my data crunching instruction vid. Here's question 17 of this student's piece of work, and that is, they've got, again, tick these boxes if you're interested in these things, if you think these are the things. Really, all I'm doing, I don't even know what these questions are in depth. I don't really know what these questions are asking, which actually makes it a reasonably abstract process, and that's still not so bad. So anyway, what I've done, I've got these here, and I've got those, and I've got them ordered by default. There we go. I've got them ordered by default in order of decreasing count of mentions. Okay. The very next step is to get those numbers plugged into a new sheet, and there's those numbers plugged into a new sheet. Thing to do now, make a few extra spots. I'm giving up time here where I should be marking students' research proposals and preparing for a lecture, but this has got to be done. I've got to get this written down somewhere. Right, so there we go. There's our list of things. Here's our count of ticks in boxes. I'm just going to make that an absolute value. I'm going to click that sideways here, no problems. Now I'm going to take all this stuff out because it's all surplus to requirements. Fine. I didn't tell you that this comes from an SPSS file as well, right? And this is part of the magic. All right. So there's our total number of mentions, and there's our and in a descending order. If I might as well, just for neatness, put those across the top as well. See this flip sideways, transpose? Lovely. Great. And what we've now got is 20. What we want to do is put the raw numbers in. How many of those 20 are also, how many of those 20, talking about asking the doctor, are also saying asking the doctor? Well, that's easy because you know that, because that's just a standard. That diagonal is just that bullshit. It just goes straight down there. Because yes, it's just an identity function. But more importantly, how many of the people who said yes, I would ask a doctor, yes, I would ask a doctor, and how many of those 20 also said I'll ask a pharmacist? Remember that the count out of the whole 38, because there were 38 in the sample, the count out of the whole 38 wasn't 38. The count out of the whole 38 respondents was 20. But now we're saying how many of those 20 also ticks the I will ask a pharmacist. You can go the long way. Here's the raw data. You could go the long way if you wanted, and you could do it like this. It will work, no problems. You sort like, oh. Yeah, that's fine. And then you could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, no problems. Here we go. 10. Okay, and you could go longhand. I'm going to do it through SPSS because this is going to drive me crazy. All right, so what I'm going to do, go back to my original file. It's a syntax file, and I am going to need that at some point. But I'll go back to the data that we had, and I'm just going to tidy this up because I was doing something earlier on. Okay, so there's our data, and there's our, it was question 17. Question 17. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, that's that same data. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No problems. So we've got that there. It's a lot more straightforward than we think. First thing we do, we go straight to creating a frequencies table just on all. Remember, see all this old stuff still in here. Get this stuff out because who needs it. Go to these question 17 that we're working on and do a frequencies table. That actually gives you the top line. See that? 20, 14, 10, 10, 5. And if we look at that, I'm just going to copy that into our dupe table. If I look at that, there we go. Just paste the raw stuff. 20, 14, 10, 10, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. Yeah, right. Okay, no problem. So that's the base stuff. What we now want to do is only look at the 20 that are in have said that have ticked the ask the doctor. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it longhand first, and then I'll do it shorthand. All right. So the first thing we'll do is transform. My mistake. Data. Select cases. If condition is satisfied, forget this if 14. But what I do want, remember we're working on question 17 here. If 17.1 is equals 1. All right. So what this does now, hit the OK button, and it goes through it, looks at the data and says, okay, is that there we go. And it pretends that it hasn't seen it. No problems. So we're only looking at the people who ticked yes to question 17. Fine. And then what we do is we totally rerun the frequencies table again, because now we're only looking at the people who ticked 17. The 17.1, right? So this is the count of people who ticked 17.1. Bang. And come back into here, copy this as its raw data, and copy this up to here. I know it's a bit mechanistic, but it's worth doing. All right. So it turns out that no surprises there that of the people who ticked ask the doctor, because that's always going to be 20. It's going to be just duplicated down there. That's going to be 14. That's going to be 10, right? But where we start to get interesting is of the 14 people who said I would ask a pharmacist, 10 of those 14 said I would also ask a doctor. All right. It then becomes quite a mechanical process, and we can do it longhand if we want. We can go back through and we can select cases and we change the condition and make it, instead of 17.1, 17.2. I'm going to show you how to use syntax, all right? But that's the process. We could just go through, mechanically fill out those lines, and then we get the raw duplication numbers. Let's use some syntax, okay? So where we go back to selecting the cases, okay, if now we want to do 17.2, we want to select 17.2. All right, so this is going to cross out, it'll cross out that one, it'll cross out that one, okay? So let's, but that's what we want to do. Now, instead of hitting the OK and just doing it, I'm going to paste it. This pastes it to a syntax area which stores the commands, okay? And without further ado, I look in a syntax area. It says filter if Q17-2 equals 1, select. This is a whole bunch of some sort of language that makes it happen, okay? And then the next bit that we did, remember we ran a frequencies table. So frequencies, and we'll do the same. Instead of actually running, I'm going to paste it to syntax, right? So what we get then, I'll find my syntax, what we get then is that's the set of words where I tell it to go pick 17.2. Only use the data from 17.2. That's the set of words that says give me a frequencies table. Alright, so SPSS, just run this. So I highlight it, hit the go button, the start button, And what that does, it goes through, does what I told you it would do. 17.2 does what I told you it would do. It pretends that that doesn't exist. Look down here, it pretends that that record doesn't exist. Fine. So, what do we do after that? Once we've got that pretend, we run the frequencies table. Again, highlight it, hit the go button. Find my output. I think it's just still having to think. There it is. So, and there we go. There's our second run. There's a whole bunch of SPSS doing its own thing, but this is the table we're interested in. Okay, so take that, copy it into our dupe table down here. That's our next row. Okay, there's our count, copy, paste. All right, and a mechanical process. So what we're getting now of ask the doctor, people who said ask the doctor, it duplicates, actually see those numbers are duplicated across the diagonal. This diagonal is the junk. Well, not that bit, that's not junk. But this diagonal here is the junk. But you can see those are duplicated across the diagonal. Alrighty, so let's go through this mechanical process. Alright, I might as well just keep the tape rolling. We're only at 16 minutes. Might as well just keep the tape rolling because it's pretty straightforward stuff. Okay, so there we've got our syntax. No problems, we're just going to drop that output. We've got our syntax. So we went 17 to, hey, we can cheat on this now, even better. Instead of 17.2, 17.3. We've got to replace those two. But anyway, that's all we do. And if we just run that, and I look at the data, it's filtered out, 17.3. Okay, 17.3, missing value, yep. 17.3, missing value, yep. We're going to pretend it's not there. So again, back to our syntax, we highlight this stuff and go. And there it is. We've now got a frequency table for the third row. Sweet. Frequency table for the third row. Remember, copy that up to here. Only 5 more to go. Okay. Remember, diagonal is junk. But we've now got, of people who said ask doctor, 5 of those said let the doctor decide, whatever those numbers are meaning. Again, as I said, this is really a data crunching tutorial more than anything else. Let's just go through it. 5 more to go. Let's do it. I'm going to cheat my way through this. So this is easy. These just happen to be sequenced in the order. Remember, if you're doing it for yourself, you need to sequence them in the order of mentions. It just happened by accident that these order of mentions were exactly what they were. Anyway, so I'm going to do it all at the same time. 4, 4, highlight the whole lot, run the whole lot. Come on, output. I think output has gone for me. Normally it spits up, doesn't it? But never mind. Here it is. Here's the output. Excellent. Let's get on with it. Put it into here. Copy that into here. I know it's just button pressing. Actually, to make this button pressing a little less painful, I'm going to do this. Okay, that's 4. Remember, 10, 10, fine. There's our diagonal crapping us up again. Right, get to it again. 4, 5, 5. Thinking of this lecture I've got to deliver at lunchtime. It's driving me mad. Okay, here it comes, and here it comes. And here it comes, and this is our data, this is our data, this is our data. Keep traveling. 6, 6. Okay, here it comes. This is our data. This, well, not yet. Here's our SPSS crunching numbers for me. Right, this is our data. This is our data. This is our data, and there it goes. Lovely. 2 more. Great, great, great. 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7. Right. Running, sleeping, running, sleeping. Click, click. There. How easy. All of the glamour in market research and data analysis, right? At least if we work, and I know you clever bods will be able to write subroutines that can do this for sure. One day I'll learn to write subroutines again. I did it for a PhD to draw double jeopardy lines, and you know, one day it might be something I need to get really good at. But for now, I'll just burn a half an hour. Ooh, gee. I'll just burn a half an hour of my time doing this when I need to. Right, so there we go. There's our raw numbers. Okay, so that's the mechanical process. We're up to 21 minutes. That's the mechanical process of getting the raw duplication numbers. So what we've got, of the 20 people who said I will ask a doctor, 10 of those said I will also ask a pharmacist, 10 of those also said I will let the doctor decide, whatever that means. Yeah, so that's where they are. Remember, the diagonal is always going to be a boring number because of the people who said target pharmacist or whatever. They also said target pharmacist because it's just an identity. So you've got a diagonal here that's boring. Okay, so we take that diagonal out. That's part number 1. What we need now is to turn those into percentages. Oi, got to get here. There we go. We need to turn those into percentages, which will make it less boring and more interesting. And then we can even look at deviations from average. Let's go to that. Let's go calculate percentages. All I'm going to do now is copy all of this content across here. I'm going to copy it in a, like just copy the values, right? So there we go. And so we've got the 38 mentions, all of that sort of thing. What we can do is call this now, because we are doing percentages, I'm going to call it percentage mentions. That old caps lock thing, mentions. Percentage mentions, and I'm going to calculate that as a percentage. Get up to here. There's our sum. Here's our equals that one divided by the sum. Fine, I'm going to put a $sign in there. See, you've got to have some basic Excel skills to follow me on this stuff. Now I'm and multiply it by 100. So that gives me a percentage of mentions. Fine. What I will also do is copy that. I'm going to just copy it down here as an absolute, and I'm going to copy it across here as a percentage. So we've got now we're working in percentages across these. Fine. We've still got just raw numbers there. But that's not too hard. Just take this out because it's junk now. And so that's fine. Of the 20 that mentioned up here, of the 20 that mentioned, 10 of those. That's 50%, isn't it? We could longhand work it out, but why don't we just do it the easy way, okay? Equals. So we do it. We put a equals. We put a formula in there. Equals. There we are. Back into this corner. Divided by that, and of course we're going to put a $sign in there. One day you might need to, or if you're not following, you're going to have to look up something like absolute values in Excel or something like that. But anyway, for those back out of that, come back up to here. Even though it's on the diagonal, I'm going to do it up here. Okay, because that is actually what we need to do. We need to make this diagonal point part of the, yeah. Okay, for the purposes of instruction, I'm going to reinsert each of these. All right. Remember 20, 14, 10, because the diagonal is the identity, right? 5. For the purposes of instruction, I'm doing this, right? 5, okay? And now we get into this, all right? So when we look at the percentages of people who said this, who also said this, let's go to the first one, which is boring, but equals that divided by that. I'm going to make that an absolute value, just as well it's recorded, isn't it? So that you can back up and see what Cullen's blasting through. Multiply it by 100 to turn it into a percentage. Okay, boring as anything, we have 100 there because it's, of course, the identity. It's the diagonal. That diagonal is going to show 100 all the way down. These are all just junk values, by the way. These are all, no, I can take these out because these are just the old things that we had copied across. So there we go. There's our 100, right? But now, the way I've set this up, if I just drag and drop, copy paste this down to here, that'll do the percentage of people who said I will ask my doctor, who said I will also ask a pharmacist. All right. Now we know that number is going to turn out to be 50 because it is. 10 divided by the 20 is 50%. So we drag and drop that down there, 50, no problems. But, and so in a flick of magic, pay attention now, in a flick of magic I can drag and drop that all the way down there, and that will say, that will calculate those percentages all the way down there. And in another flick of magic I can highlight all of that and flick it across to there. And that gives me percentages. Oh, that's interesting that they're the way they're formatted. Let's format the whole lot. Let's format the whole lot as firmly. There we go. So there we are. So we now have, with of course that same old diagonal with the hundreds, but now we're saying the percentage of mentions amongst the total number of mentions is 18% of Ask Doctor, but the percentage of mentions of Ask Pharmacist is 50%. I'm going to take all of these diagonals out now because, as I said, that was purely for the purposes of instruction. And this is our working data table. This is where the action is really happening. Okay, so it's in there. We've got our fine. We've got our percentage of mentions. Cost the whole lot, but this is where the action really is happening in there. So we find that of the people who asked pharmacists, that 71% of those people who said I would ask a pharmacist, 71% of those said that they would ask a doctor. So we end up seeing target practitioner. So we end up seeing some big numbers there. Anyway, so the trick to do to make this really show a picture to us is highlight that whole data table, create a new rule in conditional formatting, and bazinga. And so there we get a picture. I'm getting a picture that across the entire population, 13% said I would ask a pharmacist, and 18% said I would ask a doctor. But what we are getting now, what I'm also getting is that, so out of the entire number of mentions, 18% would be I'm asking a doctor. 71% of the people who said I would ask a pharmacist are also saying I would ask a doctor. So I'm starting to see a pretty solid bunch of liking in here for the asking a doctor about stuff. Sounds pretty fine. Pharmacists, same sort of thing. And here's an interesting little bit. Target doctor and target practitioner. That's 100 as well. Anyway, so interpreting duplication tables is almost another trick in itself. Let's do one last thing, okay? I'm going to create a row here called average duplication. Justify that just for convenience. I am going to calculate that average there, equals average. Calculate an average of that column, and that'll tell me what my average dupe. That was pretty clever. Close the parenthesis for me. How nice. 26 is an average dupe, and drag that whole lot across there. So the average duplication of amongst asking a doctor is 26. And then we can also then look at the deviations from average. I'm going to run another version of this down here. Brings a whole bunch of yuck, which I don't really want to see anyway. This one I will bring back. Didn't want that. What I wanted was this. Right, okay. And so I'm going to do deviations from average. First of all, I'll take these out. All right, I'm hoping this helps you. You know, if I say to anybody, hey, you should really do a duplication table on that, then I'm really going to probably send you to this YouTube video. So anyway, let's go to this last thing, equals the data minus the average duplication, and of course, Magic World, put a absolute value in there. That's going to be fine. That minus 26 is going to mess with us anyway, because the diagonal always carries junk, remember? So, diagonal always carries junk. Get it out. Actually, that ends up being the average duplication number, but whatever. And this is what we find interesting. Where the numbers are close to 0, it's boring. And normally about 10 or 15 or whatever is a cutoff number for saying it's interesting or boring. Okay, so where the numbers are, maybe even 20 here. So where the numbers are close to 1 or anything under 20, we're in boring territory. But where they are over 20, we can start paying attention. So those are numbers that are interesting, and this target pharmacy and target practitioner does even less sharing. Alright, so as I said, interpreting duplication tables, sometimes I end up having to leave that to the talent of the student, and really I wanted to keep this as short as possible because it really is simply a number crunching process. What I will do here is average duplication mention, average duplication of mention. Thanks for fixing that up. And what I want to do, just want to center across selection, just to make it a little pretty. Center across selection, fine. Make it a little larger, bolder, great. And as well as average duplication of mention. Deviation from duplication I'll even take that word average out because that average is only down the bottom. Okay. I don't think that'll help. I don't think that'll help. That's what I want to take out the word average. That's what I want. Duplication mentioned looks good. Okay. Wow. It's a mechanical process. Okay. Truly a mechanical process. You lose about a half an hour of your life doing it. It gives a pretty interesting looking table, and for an analyst who knows what they're sort of looking for, this duplications table can be pretty useful. All right. So there's a duplication of mention. So we go back to the original that I showed you to begin with. Duplication percentages. How do you want to hear about what media do you want to hear from about this medical product, which is something referred to as a home medication review? How do you want to hear about this? And we look through health professionals or their staff, and we look through at this. So when we look at the 8 people who said I want to hear from a newspaper, 100% of those 8 people said I want to also hear about it from a health professional. When of people who said other, get in touch with me however in some other manner, 83% of those also said, yeah, I want to hear from my health professional. I read this as being a preference for health professionals. I see this as being a mass media effect. I see this as just being perhaps a little bit of noise, to be honest. And I see this as being a mass media effect as well. Magazines and newspapers, magazines and oh, no. I see that as being a mass media effect, probably. Newspaper crossing over to magazines, that's a mass media effect, or a print media effect maybe. Yeah, I like to read magazines, I like to read newspapers, all of that sort of thing. I see that as being an electronic mass media effect, I see that as being noise, and I see that as being, actually both of those, as being quite some preferences for hearing from doctors and mail too. Oh, I nearly got through this whole session without swearing. Look, I'll leave that to you. It's a process, but I believe it's a process worth doing. If you've done pick any data and you're saying, oh, I can't make any sense of this, I wish I had have done some other type of data, and many people do, this is a way of how to make use of your pick any data. Okay, so duplication of mentions tables, I think I'm going to be suggesting to students as a bit of a get out of jail free card from here onwards. All right, well, there we go. Thank you for that, students. All my best to you. Students, friends, colleagues, whoever you are, I'll see you one day. Right.